And now we'll get another happy guy in here, Maurice Jones-Drew. We go out to the West Coast, and MOJO, that was a fun one. That was the kind of game that they're even showing highlights out in California of the Jaguars.
You know what? It ended up being an awesome game. And, you know what, I want to say you had the luxury of sitting Travis Etienne because of the way Hasty played, right?
Yeah.
He came out, had a big touchdown early on with the pass down the sideline. He ran the ball well and really opened up. And you're starting to see the depth, the youth of this team, but the depth of this team as well. And so we talked about it last week about how talented this team really is. You're kind of starting to see it. Guys go down and other guys are stepping up making plays. It's huge for you.
Well, and the significance, Maurice Jones-Drew, of the Jaguars having to put it in Trevor's hand, right? I mean, they're down 19-10, and they don't have Travis Etienne. He's got to do it. He's got to go make the plays. He makes critical fourth down plays. He makes big-time throws. And I just wonder if you see from afar what we've seen the last 3 weeks and what we really saw yesterday is this is a guy that we know in Jacksonville is the guy. How good he's going to be. Is he as good as Herbert? Is he as good as Mahomes or Lamar or some of these other guys? We don't know that yet. But we know he's good enough to be the guy in Jacksonville and a lot better than a lot of things we've seen here. Do you feel that all the way out west?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people have known that, right? It was about being consistent, right? Like we talked about this, I don't want to say a couple weeks ago, of how you have to improve week after week after week. And when you saw the game against the Commanders, he made some big-time throws. He made some mistakes, right? But you're not seeing him make the same mistakes twice week after week after week. He didn't, it was at the halftime, they did the rollout pass, right, or the sprint out.
Yeah.
And the last time we saw that pass, my heart sank because the last time we had that, he threw it right to the Denver Broncos in London. Well, this time he throws it to the fifth row, and that shows you growth. Even though Coach Peterson probably said if it's not open, seal that thing so we can get a field goal, but it shows growth, right? And that's what you want to see. You want to see growth from your quarterback, and that's a great example of him not trying to force a throw, understanding, hey, if it's not there, we'll play for the field goal and we'll keep going. And as much as I was like, we need to get points after getting all the way down there, you need to get a touchdown and not a field goal, you saw the growth in that, and that's kind of what I took from it.
One of the bigger signs I saw from the team that they entrust in Trevor, no matter what the situation is, that you had, for the most of the game, the offense was not moving. I mean, that offense was sleepy throughout the second and third quarters, and they're looking at him in the fourth quarter going, all right, well, now you got to step it up. And he did. He really came through for the team. It was a big day. Big day.
Well, not only that he came through, but also, Zay Jones had a big day.
Oh, man.
Kirk didn't have the best day, but he made some timely third down catches, moving the chains in those quarters when they weren't moving a little bit. You had some guys step up, and what I loved is that they came out in those bunch sets and those tight sets, and for whatever reason, the Baltimore Ravens did not communicate that well, and they were able to give Trevor some easy throws. There was a play where it was a tight set, and they let Hasty just run down the sideline without being covered. That's an easy completion to get him back going, and it ended up being like a 20, 25-yard gain. So those are the kind of things that you want to be able to kind of create with your alignment and with the play design, and then hopefully your quarterback sees them and takes those easy throws.
Maurice Jones-Drew with us here on a Monday. Brent Friends on ESPN 690. I feel like this was a massive win, MOJO, and I'm trying to go back and think of over the years some of the wins that I thought might turn the corner for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not a lot's coming to mind. I mean, I know there were some. I remember thinking of it. I was like, oh, this could be the one. This could be. But Baltimore's good. See, that's the unspoken part. Everybody is always concerned about what the Jags are doing right or wrong. They never want to give credit to the other team. This is a good football team. This is a team that I said coming in was playing the best defense of anybody in the NFL, in my opinion. And so they are a seasoned, veteran, hardened group, and they're 7-3 and 4 wins in a row. And the Jaguars did the job in the fourth quarter. They beat them. I mean, they somehow came back and beat them. I just feel like Doug Peterson and what he's represented, what he's been preaching, how this team's been believing, then the gutsy call, Trevor, and just the way this team made plays. I feel like this is one of those games, MOJO, that we're going to look back on and say the tide has turned a little bit more here in 2022 and going forward.
Okay, so this is my thing. This is the one thing we have to do, and this is what the teams that I played on, we didn't do well after 2007. We beat the Baltimore Ravens in 2011 on Monday Night Football. Defense played well. I played horrible. We found a way to win. But then the next week, we didn't finish. We didn't play a comparable team like the Baltimore Ravens that we should have beaten, and we didn't do it. So you're going into Detroit now, right? And Detroit's a really good football team. Are they going to Detroit?
Yeah, they're going to Detroit. Yeah, it'll be at Detroit.
Right. So you're going to Detroit. It's not the same. It's not the Baltimore Ravens, but they're a really good football team. They find ways to score. They have playmakers that can do certain things. How do you bounce back after big victories? Right. This is one of the first times I've seen players before. I want to say what was the game early in the year they won, and it was like we expect to win and blah blah this and that, and that was all right. But you go on this losing streak all of a sudden, and it's like, okay, now we're all excited that we won, and guys are talking in the media, and I love it. But how do you now respond from that? Do you get complacent and not work as hard in practice and not prepare as much? What do you do that's going to help you get over this hump to make sure that you have back-to-back victories? Because this is a winnable game. It's going to be a tough game, but it's definitely a winnable game because Detroit's very similar to the Jags where they've lost a lot, but they're finding their stride too, and they're playing teams tough and getting after teams as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like what you brought up there because I felt like this year that if the Jags were to win a game here or there, I thought it would, boom, explode into something. Now, there's things that change. The Jags beat the Raiders, and I was like, okay, this could explode into something. Oh, they got to go to Kansas City the next week. That's pretty hard. So they lose to Kansas City. Then they've got the bye week, and now it feels like the Raiders were like 6 months ago. But if you look at it in totality, they've won 2 out of 3 games.
Yeah,
now, right?
We were talking about that a month ago. Like, here come 3 games where you kind of need to pick up 2 out of 3 here.
And they did. So they did it. But now these other games where we thought earlier in the season were like, okay, that's not a bad matchup. Jags could go get that one. I know the other team feels the same way, but, well, these teams look a lot better. Detroit, you're right, Maurice. They are good. Tennessee is obviously good. Jets are good. Dallas is really good. And Houston, whatever, they've beaten the Jags 9 times, so you might as well consider them good, even though they stink. But it's hard. But I do wonder if you can go on a roll. And that's an interesting point. Can they refocus and roll it into the next week and keep playing well? But the one thing I like about it is the quarterback is playing with a confidence level he probably hasn't had since his collegiate days at Clemson, Maurice.
No, I think you're exactly right. The way he made those throws, the throw to Marvin Jones, I thought he should have threw to Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk was wide open in the flat. I mean, wide open. I've never seen the safety backed off into the end zone. Marcus Peters takes the go. And I'm like, oh, Christian Kirk's wide open. He's going to throw that ball. But he put the ball up and down where only Marvin Jones can get it. And, I mean, Marvin comes down with a great catch. Like, those are confident throws. That was a very similar throw that he threw to Hasty early in the game. He made some confident strikes over the middle as well. Christian Kirk caught one over the middle. It might have been like on the 3rd and 12 maybe. He was running over the middle of the field. He put the ball up, got it up over the linebackers right to him. Like, you're seeing the confidence in the throw and the way he's throwing with conviction. And that's what you want to see. Again, it's all about building, right? Confidence in the National Football League. It's so funny. I'll see people and people will come to me and be like, Maurice, like, how did you play? You're not as big as some of these guys. I'm like, that doesn't mean that I wasn't better than most of these dudes, right? I believe that I can go past these guys. And it's all about confidence when you get to the higher levels of anything. If you're confident in your abilities and in your work and the things that you're doing, then you'll go out there and perform. And you're seeing that with Trevor Lawrence. You're seeing that with some of these other guys that are showing up. Zay Jones with a big day, the offensive line protecting, right, and giving opportunities. Hasty showing up in a role where ETN doesn't play. Like, the defense keeping them in the game, right, making play after play after play, causing turnovers and fighting for the ball. Those are confidence builders, and the more you can do that, the better you'll be.
You know, in addition to building your confidence as a player, Maurice, you also suffered an injury or two while you were playing. One of those was that Lisfranc that Travis Etienne experienced last year. Did you ever have the experience where you sprained the foot after you had that Lisfranc?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean. I think we talked about this, Brent, and I don't, me and Brent do some side texting every now and then, but the Lisfranc injury when I had it was after maybe a couple thousand yards and a bunch of plays and hits. Like, my body wasn't the same as Travis, right? Travis was much younger. It happened early in his career. You're seeing him be able to bounce back, but you are going to get some of those injuries because your foot's not structurally the same, right? You either have screws in it or plates, whatever it may be. So you're going to get those type of injuries, and it's going to be important to manage those so he can have a long career. The one thing about Travis is he doesn't take a lot of hits. He doesn't take a lot of big hits, which is important. And guys really don't cut him either, right, or get him where his foot is planted. So I think you just got to make sure they were smart. I would have been smart too. Like, hey, do we want to put you back in this game? Like, yeah, we want to win it. I think if Hasty wasn't playing as well, they would have probably put him back in. But, you know, you have to be smart with guys because you're looking at the long-term deal as well.
Hey, speaking of that, actually, and I think this happened. I think this happened after we talked to you last Monday because I believe I would have asked you about it. Darrell Henderson, the Jags picked up.
Oh, yeah.
Now he's inactive last week because he doesn't know the playbook. But how much do you think Henderson? You know him. You cover the Rams. I mean, you see every game. Like that was a surprise waiving and a good pickup. We thought here in Jacksonville. Can he help the Jags here in the final 6 games?
Oh yeah, he's a terrific runner. Catches the ball well out of the backfield. Has great contact balance. Explosive. He gives you another weapon to kind of emulate what Travis Etienne brings. I just think the Rams, they're in evaluation mode, right? And it's so fun because I tell people I've been here in this situation. Evaluation mode is never fun, right? Because as a vet, you're doing your best to try to keep these young guys out because, again, the coaches are, look, the season's kind of come to an end. They're beat up. They're playing their 4th left tackle. They've started 11 different combinations at offensive line. Think about that. So they played 11 games, and they've never had the same offensive line play those games again.
That is nuts.
Right? 4th left tackle, 3rd or 4th left guard, 3rd center, 4th or 3rd right guard, and the right tackle is the only one that's been around that's a starter that's been there and played every game and every snap. So
3rd quarterback.
3rd quarterback, all your receivers, right? So Allen Robinson just went out. Cooper Kupp is gone. You're playing guys that you've drafted or, guys that are trying to get in, undrafted guys. I mean, they got a lot going on there. And so it's in the evaluation where they're trying to see what they have for next year. They want to see who are guys. And I don't think Darrell Henderson was in those plans coming into his contract year that he would be a guy that they would probably keep on. So you cut ties with them early, try to get some other guys some opportunities to see where you got to go in the draft, and you go from there. But I think the Jags, when I saw the Jags pick up Darrell Henderson, I was like, oh, that's a good pickup. Right? I don't know if you're going to be able to re-sign him or however it may be, but down the stretch, he's going to give you some great minutes, some great plays. He's really good in blitz pickup, physical, and with the ball in his hands, he's explosive.
Yeah, and what I thought that was, they didn't need to add Darrell Henderson, in my opinion. But they did, and it showed the guys they still believe in this season, in my estimation. At 3-7, you can kind of do the same thing that the Rams are doing right now and look ahead and try to look at Snoop Connor more. Now, Connor did get in there a little bit yesterday, but this was to me like, hey, I've been telling you guys from a Doug Peterson standpoint that we're better than our record. We still believe we can go on a run coming out of the bye week.
Even in that Wingard clip that went all over the place from the locker room that you were interviewing, he mentions playoffs in the clip.
He does. They believe it. And so there were 2 moves, Maurice Jones-Drew, that they made. The Darrell Henderson one said, well, why would you sign a guy for 6-7 games that's a veteran that you might not keep around? Well, it's because you think he can help right now. The other one is you start moving Devin Lloyd out of the rotation. You put Chad Muma in. You made some changes on the safeties with Wingard going in, and they're moving Rayshon Jenkins around. Like, they are doing things not for the future, but for right now. That has got to breed confidence into a locker room that says, hey, we think we can win these games. Let's go win the games.
No, I think you're right. Again, okay, so we talked about this last week where we're talking about, I was like the perfect tank or positioning yourselves via the draft to have, an ability to get some of these wide receivers or off whatever you're looking for to go in the first round. And so you said, no, I think you should win because we haven't won here in a while. And it seems as if they're going your route, which at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Whichever one works, you want to make it work. But they're doing an awesome job of really getting their guys, opportunities to play. They're challenging their players to continue to play the best they can play. If you're not playing well, we're going to put someone else in and give them an opportunity. And guys are starting to see that. We're going to go and pick up running backs or different guys on the waiver wire that we believe can help us win now, right? And that win now mode, which I didn't think about last time, is going to add competition in practice, right? Like, think about that. I can tell you now, I remember vividly getting my second deal and them drafting Rashad Jennings. And I'm like, what are y'all doing? Right? Why would you do such a thing? My money hasn't even hit the bank yet. but if that's what you want to do, let me show you why you messed up. Right? And it created a competitive spirit in me to go out there and play at a very high level. And so when you're doing that now, you're getting that at practice, and that's huge.
Rashad was better than you at Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, I'm not a dancer for sure.
I've seen you do those ballet moves on the field, Mojo.
Yeah, I'm not no waltz guy, no tango or none of that.
Why haven't you ever done any of these reality shows? We got Clay Harbor on. I mean, you talk about Rashad. I mean, all these guys do it. Why haven't you done any of that stuff? That's
not me, man. You guys know that. That's not my cup of tea.
You'd be like a good host.
No, I'm okay. I tend to keep my private life private. A lot of these guys, you get these reality shows, they want to know too much.
Yeah.
I like playing video games and doing other stuff.
Yeah, they want all the secrets.
That is true. Hey, I just slipped my interview with Andrew Wingard over to the NFL Network. I mean, I'm looking for like jobs here, but I don't know if you saw that viral post that happened in the locker room yesterday. Andrew Wingard,
I did see it,
calling out Urban Meyer a little bit. Does that reflect just how bad it was for Trevor when a player says? It's really the first time we've heard a player kind of say it at this juncture, you know?
A defensive player.
Like, we've heard a lot of things, and I know like we've had these conversations, and a lot of people ask, like Paul Posluszny asked me after All Access a couple weeks ago, it's like, what went on last year, you know? And I still don't know if we all know the full extent of it, but as these things continue to come out and you're starting to see the light now with Trevor, man, it must have been pretty bad for Trevor Lawrence and that football team last year for Urban Meyer, and I think Andrew Wingard just put an exclamation point on it yesterday.
Well, I think okay, from my understanding, I've heard that there's a lot of going back and forth with coaches, different philosophies. Again, his staff wasn't put together like most of these other staffs. They were guys that kind of were just left out there. He was able to put a couple guys together, but it wasn't like, let's say if Byron would have got the job. Byron would have had his staff come together, or the way Doug Peterson was able to get his staff together. It wasn't that. So you had a lot of different philosophies. So guys were bickering back and forth. There wasn't a lot of resources there to help Trevor, as we talked about. When you have a head coach that played quarterback in the National Football League, you have a quarterback coach, you have an OC, right? You have all these different offensive minds around him. It wasn't like that. So he didn't have a lot of resources to have answers. And so I don't think it was conducive to winning, which is fine. But the thing that you're seeing now, and it didn't breed confidence, as we talked about, he didn't have the remedy. When I got to the National Football League, and I only can talk about my experiences, I had Fred Taylor to learn from. I had Kennedy Pola to learn from. I had Greg Jones to learn from. I had Mike Tice, who had coached a bunch of running backs. Jack Del Rio, who was a linebacker, who could tell me from the linebacker side of how things are going. Mike Peterson, Darrell Smith. There were so many people. There was so much information to get better at the running back position, plus guys to compete with, that I had answers, right? I could make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, or see other guys make mistakes and learn from them, or talk to a coach on what would happen in the situation. I don't think Trevor had that. And this year you have it, and you're starting to see it. Like, I go back to it. Sprint right. If it's not open, run it or throw it in the fifth row. That's what we saw this year, and that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, I say this, Maurice Jones-Drew, what's it going to look like next November when these guys have been together? Keep in mind, a lot of this offense is going to stay together. Zay Jones and Christian Kirk are under contract. Marvin Jones probably won't be here. We'll see what happens with Ingram. The entire offensive line has a good chance of being here. ETN's going to be here. Doug Peterson's going to be here. I don't think any of their assistants are going to get head coaching jobs after this year. Like, you're going to have continuity, and now you're seeing the development. And I don't think it's hyperbole to start thinking about what this could look like, hey, later this season, but early next year, middle of next year, and by the time they've played 30 games together, this thing could really be cooking. And, oh, by the way, they're going to add Calvin Ridley to the equation.
Well, that's the other part, right? So we talked about adding receivers, right, and then going in the draft. I totally forgot about Calvin Ridley being a guy that they're excited about, right, that's coming in. So you have that number one wide receiver. Like, they're going to continue to put weapons around Trevor as well as add to this defense. And I think, again, the most important thing is figuring out a way to make sure that all this stuff stays together, right? Make sure that Doug Peterson understands that his vision is being fulfilled, right? And all those different things, because at the end of the day, we know this, and I'm going to say this no matter how good you are. You could be the Tennessee Titans. It's going to be hard for them to win the championship with Ryan Tannehill. It's just going to be hard because eventually your quarterback has to be able to make that throw, right? If you look at all the top teams in the National Football League, and I hate saying this, you have to have a guy that you trust can make that throw to win you a game. Period, point blank. Last year in the Super Bowl, who was it? Who made the throw? Matthew Stafford made the no-looker to Cooper Kupp. Who missed the throw? Joe Burrow, right? Like, he made all those great throws. When it came down to it, he missed the throw. And that's what it comes down to. Can you make a throw at the end of the game to win it? And Joe Burrow made the throw against the Kansas City Chiefs last year, and he missed it in the Super Bowl. But they have a guy that can do it. So having Trevor Lawrence is going to be huge because it's going to give you an opportunity to win, because we're seeing him now make those type of throws, those game-winning throws.
I'm really excited about it because I don't think we've ever seen development like this. Like, you can really see, and that's what maybe the bad last year gave us, the chance to kind of like, this was the bottom floor, and now we're seeing what it looked like early on in the season, but then the little slide back, and now these last 3 games. And again, you're seeing confidence and a calmness and a coolness and a boom, that ball is getting out, and it gets there now. We haven't seen a guy with this kind of talent around here, and that is crystal clear. Blaine Gabbert could throw the football, but not like this, and nobody else could throw the football like this in Jacksonville's history. So it's pretty fun to watch. I want to take you around the NFL before we let you go. How bad was what Kyler Murray said after the game? And I kind of equated it to like Zach Wilson. Like, which one was actually worse, Zach Wilson last week or Kyler Murray this week?
I think Zach Wilson was about accountability, right? I think that the Arizona Cardinals they've had an issue going on there for whatever reason, but now it's kind of out. We've seen him being Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury get into a yelling match.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen all these different things. And the funny thing is, I always tell people this, the grass isn't always greener, right? Cliff Kingsbury runs a very similar system that you ran in college, that you were most comfortable with. That's why they brought him in, because they wanted to draft you number 1. It was a lot of similarities, right? I want to say Kyler wasn't Kyler at Texas Tech at one point? Or did he go straight to Oklahoma?
Yeah, I don't think he was ever at Texas Tech.
I think it was Baker that was there, excuse me. But it was a very similar system that he was used to running. Don't bring in one of these old coaches or another coach that comes in if you don't agree with this coach and what his system is. Now you're going to be running a completely different system because things are going to be crazy. So right now they got to sit down and figure it out. Like that, I think that's much worse when you talk about this is a schematical thing and we're just all messed up. And he said the F word, but like that's not good, right? That's not good to go out and say things ain't working.
Yeah, Kyler was at Texas A&M, but to your point, Mojo, is Cliff that brought him in here. Like, who does he think is coming up on the other side of it?
I don't know. I don't. And that was the one thing I remember being in Jacksonville and being like, hey, look, we understand how to practice and what certain coaches want. If a coach gets fired, you don't know what's going to come next.
Yeah, that is true.
Like,
and
you don't know.
He'll be going through some growing pains probably, right?
Oh, I mean, he goes through growing pains now.
Yeah.
He hasn't been playing the best either. And so I've called his games. He doesn't play well. Like, you know, it was a point where people thought Colt McCoy was better for that team than he was.
Yeah,
so,
well, looked like it for a little bit.
Yeah, so they got some issues there. I think Zach Wilson's deal kind of answered itself, right? He thrown only 4 touchdown passes all year. My man throws for 3 in the game. that ain't good.
By the way, I'd bring Mike White in like every 6 weeks, and just his first game of playing is awesome.
Just a refresher for the team. Yeah, it works out that way.
That was unbelievable what he did again. Let me ask you about a different one. This is not going to work out with Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson, is it, in Denver? I mean, how about that scene with the defender going after Russell Wilson a little bit? I mean, that's a veteran guy. That's not a young quarterback. That's a bad look, a bad scene, a bad time right now in Denver.
What could that guy have possibly been saying to Russell, too, on the way out on the field? Like,
score us a touchdown.
Keep us off the field, dang it.
I don't know what he said, but I can tell you this. I've called a bunch of games with the Rams against Seattle with Russell Wilson. And I said this on air this summer, like, Russell Wilson's the 4th best quarterback in that division. And people, like, ridiculed me. I mean, I got tore up. Are you kidding me? blah, 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 this and that. And I'm like, listen, man, I'm just being honest with you. Russell Wilson doesn't go through all his reads. He misses reads all the time. Nathaniel Hackett has struggled as a play caller, so much so that he had to give it to Clint Kubiak, right? And so it just wasn't. It's just not a good mix. And I feel like Denver panicked because they didn't get Russell Wilson, or not Russell. They didn't get Aaron Rodgers, so they panicked. And you paid Russell all this money, and now you're stuck with him, and it just doesn't work. And now you have a guy who, people believed in early on, and all the antics and all the we saw him doing the visual thing, and all that works when you're winning. But when you're losing, nobody want to see that stuff.
No.
I just want to see you go out and work. That's all I want you to do. I want to see you go out and work and put this thing together. All this other stuff when you're visualizing and get rid of that. Let's just go win some games. And he hasn't played. He's only thrown 7 touchdowns this year.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it's this bad in Denver. Like, I can't remember a star player that has fallen from grace like this. Is this Casey? Is this who did we compare Russell Westbrook a little bit at one time to Russell Wilson? Like, because Westbrook had just fallen into the tank.
You did, yes.
Which I thought it was a good comparison until recently, by the way.
You did.
Russell Westbrook's
when they
back
said Westbrook was going to sit the bench for a little bit, you were like, oh, look at that.
Casey, that was the guy, right? But Mojo, you don't see guys fall from grace like this. It's one thing to be like 40 years old or have injuries. Russell Wilson was like a top 4 quarterback in the NFL in Seattle.
Again, this is what I'm trying to tell you. Maybe it was Pete Carroll. Maybe Pete Carroll knew something and saw something, right? Because to me, that's the most important thing. We're not talking about Pete Carroll because look what he's doing with Geno Smith. He's
good.
finding a way to win games with Geno Smith right now. So maybe it was a Pete Carroll thing, and maybe Russell Wilson should have stayed and bought into what he was going on because he was very successful there.
You could host the quarterback reality show. Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Zach Wilson. I mean, this could be a heck of a show for you. Maybe an idea you should broach with NFL
Look
Network.
At you desperate to get him on TV.
It's a lot. It's a lot going on, man. It's this quarterback thing is different. I try not to dive too much into it, but as of lately, these quarterbacks are doing everything to put us in those situations.
Do you think it's making a case that maybe we should go back to sitting these guys for a good year or two, letting them learn a little bit?
I've always listened. One of the best quarterbacks, or the two top quarterbacks to me in the National Football League have been, I would say Aaron Rodgers over the last couple of years, who sat for 4 years, and even Patrick Mahomes sat for a year.
He did.
Right?
Yep.
Sit him for a year.
By the way, Brady did too way back when.
Yep.
Yeah, Brady learned all that stuff. Like just let him sit. I get it. You may have some guys, but not a lot of guys are coming in and winning right away. Right? Like even Josh Allen still has his struggles going on right now that he had in year 1. You
probably ruin more guys throwing them out to the Wolves than you do make guys by throwing them out to the Wolves, I would imagine.
No, you would. Listen, I remember we had Blaine, and the purpose was to sit Blaine for a year, keep David, and to be honest, I feel like if we'd have had David that first year, we probably would have run the AFC South because David was able to run a little bit more, and he was a veteran quarterback. He knew where to go with the ball, and he would take off and do some things.
He didn't really turn the ball over either, yeah.
He did, yeah. He didn't turn and if Blaine would have sat that year, I think his career trajectory would have been completely different because now he's fighting for his life on some of those games, right? Like, I mean, we couldn't protect him as much, and he was getting hit left and right. He was trying to do his best to stay in the pocket, but it's tough to do that. And so sometimes you ruin a guy putting him in there when the team's not ready or he's not ready, and it doesn't help you.
Well, when they did that, they set the franchise back, and the Denver Broncos might have set the franchise back. The New York Jets, I feel like they still could have set the franchise back. I don't think Mike White's the permanent solution, so we'll see what happens with them. And now this whole Kyler Murray thing, what might have set them back is the $46 million contract. Like, too soon. Did he earn it?
Well, and you're telling him he can't – he has to study.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like –
and maybe a new playbook now.
We're telling them, hey, we need you to you got to study on your own at least 4 hours a week. Like, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
The guy that you have to tell to study now wants a new playbook.
Yeah. He's looking forward to it.
It's like the kid that's bad at math who wants to take pre-calculus. Like, who does that?
Listen, I'm going to tell you guys this. When we played in Jacksonville, I was one of the top gamers in the country, if not at the world, at one point. Okay? But I studied my butt off every week, extra hours, to make sure that I was prepared to get ready to go. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those things that you have to. It's part of being a professional, right? And you got to make sure in these situations, and that's what I've talked about this with the Rams. When you're in this evaluation period, you're not being evaluated as much as you're getting evaluated as a skill set and a physical set as a player, but you're being more evaluated as a professional. Are you going to do your job when everything's going bad, right? Are you going to show up early? Are you going to put in extra work? Are you going to do the things that make you better as a player when everything's going the wrong way, right? Or are you going to one of those guys that things have to just go right for you to do things, right? And so all those things matter. And it's important to be a professional. I thought last year, a lot of those guys on the Jags, to bring it back full circle, as bad as it was, they were professionals, right? You're starting to hear about all this stuff coming out now, but you really didn't hear about that stuff then, right? And that's part of being a professional, still working, trying to figure it out.
That's a really good point. It's a good message, by the way, to those Rams guys that you're telling, but it's a really good point on the Jags, and one that was underrated last year. This locker room stayed together. This locker room still did their thing. Nobody gave up on it, and a lot of those guys are still here and now reaping a little bit more of the benefits, and hopefully more to come down the road. All right, man, give the family our best. You got any updates? I mean, you guys are done playing, right? Are we going to track and speed workouts and hit the weight room? I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah, we're done. We finished back-to-back undefeated champions. We had a couple of teams we thought we were going to play kind of like some, best on best games, but it didn't end up working out. A lot of teams go to Florida to play in those youth football championship games.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about it. And it's really expensive to come from California to go there for a couple of weeks.
But, come on, you got a place to stay, man. I mean, come on, let's go.
Listen, I would love to do it, man, but we had like 30 plus kids, so it was going to be a lot for everybody. But we're back to we're healing up. Everyone got the flu. What is it? The Thanksgiving flu that goes around every year?
I think so. A lot of people do have it. You're right.
Yeah, we got that. So that ran through the house. But we're ready, getting ready for high school football for Deuce, and then Madden, my youngest one. I don't know if you guys remember. He's getting ready to play 12U football. So we're excited. And then my daughter's she's getting ready to try out for the Olympic team in tumbling here.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, she's the best athlete by far.
No doubt. Never a doubt. Probably never a doubt there. Not after chasing her brothers around a little bit. So
he's the one that taught them how to flip. That video I sent you, that's all her.
The flip heard around the world, which was a very good video, by the way. That was awesome. All right, man. Have a great week, and thanks for catching up. We'll do it again, hopefully after. Hey, listen, here's the deal. The Jags beat the Lions. The Titans lose to the Eagles.
Oh,
the Jags are 2 back and play the Titans twice. There's still a chance, Mojo.
Oh, no, there's a chance. And again, the biggest thing with the Titans is we all know it. You got to stop King Henry. For some reason, he is upset Jacksonville didn't draft him. So we got to find a way to get him up out of there. But you do that, it's going to be a very exciting time.
All right, man. Thanks. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right.